Welcome back. Today we have Andrew Good from Liberty Grove Software. Andrew has been a staple in the Microsoft community. He's a Business Central partner. We're going to talk about AI. You hear about this every week. How are partners embracing it? What are their customers asking for? And we're going to dive into some active work that he's doing because it does change the narrative sometimes. Stick around. Andrew, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?
Good as always, man. Thanks for joining us on the show today. And we have Tom Doran. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. Andrew, always good to see you. And, in your windup, I would say that just since, Tony, you and I share a food background, I will say one of the things that I've always enjoyed about Andrew is that he's got a specialization in the food industry. And, that's a soft spot for you and I.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I had 18 years in food service. That was my first major career. So the fact that this is a space that you play in, and I would even say you're innovating in, and we'll get into that a little bit, but just great to be here today.
Great to have the opportunity to have a chat. As you've mentioned, I've been in the space for, pushing 24 years, doing a lot of work with customers going from starting with the Navision Nav and moving forward in through Business Central and that whole journey in terms of the product, but also have had an opportunity to work with a lot of food and beverage companies over the years. And that's been exciting. And it's been really nice to be able to work with customers as they go through an evolution or a transformation in their business.
You mentioned transformation because that was kind of a hot buzzword phrase, especially right around the COVID time, right? It was the digital transformation. What are companies doing for their version of a digital transformation? And then AI was starting to bubble up. And now it's just completely front and center. I think it's part of everybody's version of their transformation. How are you seeing this play out? Because I know AI means a lot of different things to different people, but for you as a partner, where do you see this going?
As a partner, I see it as another key tool to leverage, a lot of really good information that's our, companies are already collecting and managing, for example, ERP data transactions. But AI presents an opportunity to improve business processes, improve accuracy, reduce cost from a dollar perspective, improve customer satisfaction. Those key metrics that help, a business grow and thrive. That's kind of vague to start with, but one of the things we're seeing is customers are starting to lay the foundation for moving to an AI concentric world. And that's been great to follow some of those people on their journeys.
One of the things, and I think it's interesting that you frame it the way you do, Andrew, and, whether you say AI or machine learning or digital transformation, I've been trying to encourage people just in conversation to say, look, don't get hung up on what the right word is. Focus on the things that you just described. What are the outcomes you're trying to drive in your business? And then let us help work with you because we're close to this tool set. We're close to the people that are doing, frankly, with AI, I call it experimentation, right? But we've got this experimental tool out there that is very powerful. And so let's just help you. We'll guide you through what works best to help you achieve the outcome you're after.
Yeah, and I think you've zeroed on something that's really important, which is, what are the key challenges that you're trying to address from a business perspective? And you put a group of people in a room and you'll come up with, lists and lists of things that need to be improved. But, if that can be distilled down into 2, 3, 4 key metrics from a business perspective, then that can start to help form that framework of, okay, here are a couple of pilot projects to use, since we have an experimental tool, we'll talk about pilot projects. Here are a couple of pilot projects we can start to look at from an AI perspective. Really excited to be able to talk about using the tremendous amount of information gathered by ERP. And there's a lot of information in that data, but I refer to it as data and information. Data is all the bits and pieces. It's the customer, it's the order history, it's the items that they ordered, the dates that they ordered it. But once you start to review that, it becomes information, and then that information, you can take action on. And the neat thing with AI is now that action can become part of the tool set. So AI can not only assess the data, it can put together information, and then, in the degree to which you want, automate the handling of that information.
Yeah, there's two points that you key in on that that come to the top of my mind. One is data. That's like, I'm a big fan. If you can collect it. I don't care what it is. Number of flushes in your restroom. I don't care what it is. If it's collectible, do it, because that will get put to use. And then it needs to be in a place that's, I'll say, AI friendly. I mean, AI is, the high level automation and sophistication, but if we can make the data still easy and centralized and cleansed and governed, all the better you're going to be. And so, dealing with customers and prospects that might be running NAV or older legacy ERP systems that are on-prem, there is another, I'll call it a project within a project. You're helping customers get the Business Central SaaS, but they also have all this legacy information. So it almost becomes a 2-for-1 when you engage. I think I'm hearing you say that. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is experimentation, because this AI is not a sales pitchy thing where you promise the moon and we'll worry about it later. Lack of specificity is part of the intention here, because AI can be anything to anybody. So helping to zero in, the R&D is purposeful. The experimentation is purposeful. And it doesn't drain months and, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there. I love how this journey plays out.
But I will say this, and Andrew, I know you're an old process guy. If you think about Six Sigma or some of these other value stream mapping, we find that process definition is absolutely critical, because AI, the worst thing that happens in a more linear type of automation is that it simply doesn't function, right? But with AI, and just a reminder, if you haven't read The Alignment Problem by Brian Christian, I would recommend it to any of our listeners. But with AI, it's going to try to reason. And so if we've been weak in our logic in defining our process, then this AI tool might decide that the right next step is something so totally erroneous that we end up with a really bad outcome. And so we have to define the process that we're trying, the outcome that we're trying to achieve, or you're going to have it'll be some humorous anecdotes. It'll be like our outtakes on this podcast.
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. Well, and Andrew, that's why I love with your company, the analysis, however you phrase it or coin it, but it's that deep dive under the hood, understanding the customer's process before one line of code is written. And I think it speaks to what Tom was saying, is we want to make sure our process is nailed down, because as you get into the project, as you automate, as you introduce AI, all the more that button down process is going to be important.
Yeah. So for us, as we get engaged with a customer and we're going through the initial discussions, we're already starting a discovery process with that customer. Just in our conversations and understanding of, starting out at a very high level, what are your key issues, and then, drilling down and getting a better understanding of, what they're trying to achieve with, we usually start by getting engaged with a new Business Central project. Like, why do you need a new ERP? Where have you come from? Where are you going? What are your challenges? And then we get involved in a very deep discovery process where our team gets a chance to meet with the customer team face to face, because that's key too. We've got tools, but it's that personal interaction, those relationships that allow those processes to be vetted out, allows people to be candid in their conversations. The first nav project I ever did, as I look back on it, I would say that the plant manager disclosed 80% of what he wanted out of a new system, but we didn't find out the next 20% until a year after go live. And knowing what we, knew that at the 1 year mark, we would have configured things differently. So getting that candor from people has been phenomenal. Also, the other thing that we've seen from those discovery processes, companies that are saying, you know what, there is something to AI. We want to start to set the stage so that we can go ahead with AI. And it's amazing, even with all the tools that people have today, the number of Excel spreadsheets and PDF documents and Word documents that organizations still have. They receive them from customers and vendors and prospects, but they're key to their day-to-day operations. So how do you, in a meaningful way, gather that information so it's accessible to the people that need it from a day-to-day perspective? But, as you're going down and working on this AI journey, how do you make sure that that data is available in an appropriate way? We're talking about governance and access and permissions.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that. I was just in a conversation last week, and like a lot of executive teams, there's a particular member of this leadership group that's, I'll say, a bit of a resistor, right? A lot of smiles, a lot of laughs, not a lot of help, a lot of skepticism, a lot of unhelpful, vague criticisms, right? We've all seen it before. And so the question came up, how do we know if this was a successful go live? And I said, look, if we can take an order and price it properly, if we could pick the order and purchase the raw material appropriately, if we can manufacture the appropriate amounts, record the costs on that manufacturing appropriately, pick and ship our product appropriately to the customer, invoice it, and collect cash, it's a total success. Everything else is an inconvenience.
I'd even boil it down to three things. And I do this all the time with C-suites. Like, can you take an order? Can you ship the order? Can you collect cash? Doing those three things, we're high five.
I used to do that, Tony, and if I didn't add those other half dozen, somebody'd say, if I can't price it right, then who the hell cares if I took the order?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, right? But anyway, when you get an executive team, that's the buy-in you need.
That's right.
Because the people who are actually doing the work, and I mean this properly, right? So if the executives are listening, I want you to hone in on this. Tony in customer service, he's only doing what you told him to do. And he's only really focused on the thing that you complained about 2 or 3 times over the past. So he's by certain not going to mess that particular thing up. And there's probably some stupid process in your old system that was custom coded to prevent something that happened 13 years ago that probably isn't even applicable anymore. But Tony's going to demand that feature, by God. And it's your job as a leader to support your project team and say, look, there's going to be change, Tony. Process is going to be different. Did we take the order? Is the price right?
And I love so listening to you, Andrew, describe your process. This is why, what's the project? Well, the project is they want to get to Business Central or get to SAP. That is, it's so much more than that. And you covered it. There's 3 key pillars in there. And one is the user adoption change management, and it starts from the top, getting the leadership team on board, making sure people's time is available as needed, and it's all that cheerleading, because change is hard. There is the act of getting them to ERP, but then it's the data transformation, it's the governance, it's the AI thought process, and you cover it all. This becomes a huge organizational shift for clients, depending where they are in terms of their maturity in technology.
Yeah, it's a big shift, and I'm going to say it's an initial shift, right? In other words, for us, our focus is on getting an ERP system in place. So once that's in place, that's not the end of the journey. That is the beginning of, I'm going to use an older phrase, continuous improvement. It can be, reducing paperwork for the accounts payable team, like streamlining that whole process. It can be uh, delivering information or data to your vendors. We actually, going back to that first project I referenced earlier, one of the things, they happen to be nothing to do with in the food and beverage space, which is a sweet spot for us, but they're a manufacturer and they dealt with steel. Well, what happens in this when you're getting steel as a raw material is the availability completely fluctuates with the economy. The economy is doing well, it takes you 6 months to get an order. If the economy slowed down a bit, you can get your order in 4 weeks. They needed to communicate very, very clearly with their suppliers. So we work with them and said, well, you have an opportunity here to build that relationship with those suppliers by giving them more meaningful information. You give them a forecast that runs out 26 weeks. As we move into the AI realm, those types of things are going to become very, very interesting in terms of the kind of information we can share with other organizations so that they can help you, but also so you're not a thorn in their side. So you're going to get better service.
That's an interesting comment that you just made, because Tony and I are working with two separate companies, both on a Microsoft journey. And, maybe people know this, maybe they don't, but Business Central is just far and away the fastest growing product for mid-market companies in the SaaS space, smoking everybody. Point being that we have a manufacturer on the East Coast, and we have a fairly large distributor in sort of the Southeast. Well, turns out their customer, one is the customer of the other. And so, now we're trying to collaborate with them on how can we make data available to each other as trading partners that help us both run our businesses better, and what kind of cost savings might we drive out of our supply chain by doing that, right? That's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, because I think, I've always viewed a company's ERP system as, one component of a supply chain. And if we can get, our component talking to our suppliers, talking to our customers, and making it more seamless, we have there's a tremendous opportunity out there to be more effective in the delivery of services, greater opportunity to improve margins, reduce errors, potentially reduce the amount of time, humans behind keyboards for every transaction. And, those translate into cost savings. And, historically, I've always been, reluctant to spend time talking to customers about, hey, well, we're going to implement this system and we're going to, save 5 jobs and we're going to be able to cut 5 people. Well, no, today, that story has changed. That's evolved. And that is, we can't find those 5 people. So let's be more efficient with the people we have so that they're going to want to stick around.
Yeah, that's huge, because there is the fear factor of AI, of mass unemployment, increasing automation. Even we've conversed with partners across multiple spaces that are time and material, and that is with it's the increasing automation, and I'll even say self-implementation, that does kind of strike the fear in some partner circles of what's our model going to look like 3 years from now, right? But what I do love is the companies that, everybody wants to grow. We all aspire to grow as a company. So how do we do more with less, or how do we do more with same? Sorry. And then eliminating the mundane. But there's also the expectation as workforce turnover occurs and the younger gen comes in. There's an expectation that tech is being embraced. Even the customer experience. Customers want to know how you're leveraging AI and delivering a more positive experience to them. It's here to stay.
It is. And, one of the things I found with AI, and, it's a struggle we've had as a partner, and I'm sure it's a struggle a number of people have, is how do I start getting engaged? How do I start that experimentation that Tom talked about earlier? And, part of it is, it does need to get set as a priority to start, utilizing the tool. You do need to identify some champions. And, a champion for this, it might be different than a champion for, supply chain improvement, because, that person's focused on the supply chain. So you're going to want a people person. You're going to want somebody that understands data, and someone that understands the opportunity within the business, or can go and suss out those opportunities, find out what's working, what's not. And it is an iterative process. You're going to do something, you're going to learn, it's going to be successful. You're going to do something, you're going to get a 2 + 2 = 5 answer, and you're going to go, that makes no sense. So why did that happen? And you're going to tune your process and the way you ask things, or you're going to go and tune the source of your that AI uses for its content.
And I would just say that because one place that we see people get hung up, right? We use terms like tune your system. And they go, oh my goodness, this sounds great. I use, the little thumbs up, thumbs down when you get a result from ChatGPT or Copilot. That's tuning your system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like training a puppy. If you go get a new puppy and you don't ever say good puppy, bad puppy, then the puppy, maybe you got a good puppy, maybe you didn't, right? And it grows up into whatever it grows up into. But if you take your GPT answers or your Copilot answers and you just say thumbs up, thumbs down, good, every time. And why? That's tuning. That's teaching. Sorry, go ahead. People get freaked out, right? We say tune, we say train your agent. And they go, oh my goodness, this is going to take all kinds of skills and things.
And you can do it securely, because that's always another common fear, is that as we're using this technology, and now all of a sudden all of our proprietary information is in the hands of our competitors. I mean, there is a common sense approach that is kind of fear mongering. There are ways to govern and protect. It's a collaborative effort. I mean, so we work with partners like you all the time. Customers are inquisitive. They need help. They need guidance. I mean, these are big steps, but once you're there, one of the first things you say is, geez, why didn't I get here sooner? Because the benefits are real.
Yeah, the benefits are real. And you've got a number of, pressing challenges as an organization, and labor is one of them. And engagement, and also you've got a lot of people that are gray-haired like myself, and you need to build that continuum of people within the organization, so that as new people are joining, you've got appropriate tools for them. They can work in a manner that they're familiar with, that still delivers the results you're looking for. So it does benefit the organization to be current with technologies and the tools. I look at an ERP as a giant Swiss Army knife. It can do a lot of things, but it does and it can do a lot of things really, really well in the right hands.
Well, we used to say this 25 years ago. If you don't have the right process, if you put in automation, you're just going to do the wrong thing faster.
Yes, absolutely true.
It holds true today, only exponentially,
Right.
Exponentially. And the other thing too is, depending what automation means to an organization, if it means physical equipment, that can be a tremendous investment that bears very little return on your investment. So, and then you're stuck with it. It's like, well, we now have this millions of dollars invested in this type of technology.
There's a lot of people that say that about ERP, Andrew. I spent $1 million in it. It's no better than what I had before, but I'm stuck with it.
And 10 years ago, if someone told me, we spent $1 million and now I'm stuck with it, I'd be like, Now today, when we spend $1 million, I'm stuck with it. I'm like, you're welcome, because today's SaaS world, I mean, implementation's done right. It's the last upgrade you're going to do. So you are stuck with it. And now it's oil changes going forward, not engine changes. And I'll even challenge the people that say, well, I spent all this money and I'm no better off than where I was. Okay, so we didn't regress. We did an MVP launch for you, minimum viable product, and now the sky's the limit. And now we're gonna, we're gonna optimize. We're gonna get better. We're gonna flesh out these AI use cases. Like, these are positive comments. What I'm hearing.
They are, except that what the thing, and I know we all know this, but I want to drive it home for a minute. It's so much more important to get it right than it is to get it fast when it comes to the design and planning of where you're going. Now, you can't design for perfect, right? I am actually a big fan of Agile, but we have to design to a sufficient degree, at least from a data security and governance perspective, and then everything else we can work through. But we got to put ourselves in a position to succeed from there. And then I agree with you guys, the sky's the limit.
So a trap that we got to avoid, but it's all back into getting that adoption from the very top, is, well, how long is this going to take? And I think this speaks to the balance. I think, Tom, you're talking about balance. While agile approach means we don't have all the answers, but we can't say it might take us 10 years. I mean, there has to be some level of how long it's going to take. But if they dig their heels in and want to hold it to a timeline and a budget, man, they're stuck in the 70s. Like, that's not how these things work.
Getting a good foundation in place is key. Getting that solid base from which to add. So now that you can build your use cases, you can leverage your ERP data, you can leverage other data from the organization, you can do some experimentation in the AI space, you can refine your business processes, you can take better care of your customer, you can improve customer satisfaction. We also understand how Business Central out of the box can be utilized, how Business Central with, our LGS food apps can be leveraged, how Business Central with, other food add-ons can be leveraged to build that nice flat foundation for you to move your business forward.
I like that you don't pigeonhole companies. Like, you give them the ability to extend and morph, and it's not such a rigid approach. Here's what you're going to use, and if you don't like it, it's and I think it embraces the whole theme around what Microsoft wanted to do with Business Central. And this is one thing I'm still impressed with. I'm not saying they get everything right, but they do get a lot right, and that is, customers going on Business Central can extend it and make it their own, even with their own internal teams, while these updates occur every month, and it doesn't break the ship. And with the AI tools, it gives them a heads up well in advance. Hey, this major update's coming, but we see some of these extensions that you have in place are going to get a little bit pissed off. So it gives them a heads up, and it allows them to give you a heads up as the partner to work together so that the release goes smoothly.
I would agree with you on the flexibility side. Business Central has done a good job where, even though it is a cloud solution, you've got these layers of functionality, Microsoft providing that first foundation. You're getting all kinds of configuration benefits, the ability to customize, and lastly, that ability to have a contained pot of data that you can leverage from an AI perspective, so that you've got the data that you need, that you're not sharing it with the outside world and all your competitors.
Andrew, thanks again for taking the time. And it's been fun watching your company and business grow, and how you've embraced AI and really making the process and change management and user adoption hallmarks of the value that you bring to your customer. Looking forward to your next chapter, and we continue learning together. Everybody, thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Yeah. Quick question for you, Tony. Are you seeing my logo the correct way or backwards?
Correct way.
Okay, because I'm seeing yours and Tom's the correct way.
Yeah. No, yours looks good.
Okay.
Oh, it's funny, Andrew. No, what you will notice is that in your own, when you look at yourself, it does look the wrong way. But that, yeah, I
Yeah,
never even
okay.
checked that before. You really are an engineer. I always tell people, they're like, Andrew, I don't think he likes me. I'm like, I'm certain that at worst he has no opinion about you because he's a really nice.
Let's just adjust the chair out. There we go. Good.
And let's not waste any more time, Tony. Tee us up and let's roll.
Well,
Here we go.
give me a moment just before we tee up to have another couple sips of coffee.
You can have sips of coffee during the thing. This is so casual.
In fact, I edit in you pouring vodka in your coffee. So just
there we go.
just for a heads up. And now it's engine changes going or cut. And now it's oil changes going forward, not engine changes. Whee!